Luckily, the requirements for Rasial are pretty straightforward. You need to do the Alpha versus Omega quest, which requires 95 necromancy, 30,000 souls in the Well of Souls, and also 86 archaeology, since you need to have done Tombs of the Warlock. Here's a list of stuff I strongly recommend you have for this boss fight, with obviously the most important at the top. You're definitely going to need the South Amulet, Tier 90 weapons, and Hellhound for sure. Igneous Calmore is also really useful. I don't know if you need it, but it's going to help a lot, and you're not really going to be able to follow along with what I do if you don't have it. For this fight, my relics are going to be Fury of the Small, Death Ward, and Persistent Rage. Now, Persistent Rage doesn't really do anything during the fight, but it does mean you don't have to go visit the Adrenaline Crystal between each kill. Unless you're using Adrenaline Potions, then you'll have to use it to reset them. But on my equipment, I am wearing the Tier 90 Death Dealer top, bottom, and helmet. I'm wearing the Tier 80 boots, Death Touch bracelet. A note on the Death Warden armor, which is the tank armor. You can wear that, but the defense and dodge chance do not work against Rasial. The extra health and the damage reduction will work, however. I recommend use Equilibrium Aura because it's really good for necromancy, but if you're having trouble staying alive, you can use Vampirism Aura or Aegis Aura instead. I do have the Soulbound Lantern, and it does help, but it's not going to like make or break anything. So before I go inside the instance, I'm going to use Conjure Undead Army. If you can't have 4 Conjures at the same time, that's okay, but I do recommend to use all 4 because Rasial does do quite a lot of damage. I'm going to use Life Transfer to extend their duration, and then I'm going to eat 2 sharks. If you have some other food you'd rather use instead of sharks, feel free. I have a bunch of extra sharks. Make sure you use Haunt. You don't have to necessarily use it before you go, but just make sure you use it before the fight starts. This is not the inventory I will have in the video, but if it's your first kill, you probably want to bring something like this, and you can replace the sharks with something better, or with like blue blubber jellyfish if you have that. You may need to bring a Prism of Restoration runes or Hellhound healing scrolls if the fight takes too long. I'm going to surge forward and walk onto this specific spot. I'm going to use Command a Skeleton Warrior before the fight starts. If you're not using the Death Dealer armor, remember to use Invoke Death at the start of the fight. So I'm going to cast Vulnerability and then use Death Skulls. Now you can see at the top here, Rasial's building up a stack of Death Spark. When that gets to 5, the next hit will change it to a pink and green symbol, and then when that happens, his next attack will deal extra damage, and then also remove your protection prayers unless you're immune to stuns. You can just camp Soul Split, but I feel like if you do enough damage you can do that. You probably don't need my help. So when I get up to 91 Adrenaline here, he's going to have about 5 stacks, and I'm going to use Freedom, then I'm going to use Living Death. You can activate Enhanced Excalibur here if you have it. He will summon minions periodically throughout the fight with this voice line.
Rise, my minions!
Once you've done 100,000 damage to him, he'll say this voice line.
You've come a long way, but clearly not far enough.
And he'll summon 2 soul obelisks. They'll periodically give him residual souls, and you can kill them, but really I wouldn't recommend it because they come back and it's kind of just a waste of time. We'll go over what the residual souls do in a little bit. Gonna use Death Skulls as soon as we can. Hopefully your second Death Skull should line up with him summoning the minions either like right as he does it or a little bit later. Now on the second Death Spark, he's gonna tease you a little bit because he's gonna use Finger of Death before he does it. So press Anticipation a little bit later, ideally when the icon is purple and green. And Death Skulls is still gonna be on cooldown when you hit enough adrenaline for it. So use 2 Fingers of Death in the meantime, and then use Death Skulls again as soon as you can. Now he's going to summon the minions again, and he's going to use Death Spark, so I'm going to use Freedom, and then I'm going to activate Devotion. And the reason I'm going to do that is because I'm going to use Death Skulls here, which will kill the minions and extend Devotion. When he uses this voice line,
Join us in death.
He's going to summon a wall of moving ghosts. And of course the ghosts will hurt you if you make contact with them. But as long as we're standing here near the north of the room, they will not be able to hit you. If you're standing somewhere else in the room and he summons them, you can immediately walk through the ghosts to avoid getting hit.
Join us in death.
Now you've probably noticed he's been building up residual souls, and when he reaches 5, he'll say this voice line.
This is true power.
And then he'll use Volley of Souls. I strongly recommend that you have up Deflect Necromancy if you don't, and you probably want to use Reflect or preferably Devotion.
This is true power! This is true power!
Things line up for me here so that I can kill the minions, extend Devotion, and get through Volley while taking pretty much no damage. You can flick Soul Split on when you use Volley of Souls, but it's not going to get you that much extra health with just 3 stacks, but with 5 I'd say it's definitely worth it. Since we've gotten through using Death Skulls as much as we can, now you can finally apply Bloat. Also, around this time he'll dive at you and stun you, which will disable your protection prayers unless you had Anticipation or Freedom up. So hopefully after a few kills you'll get used to the timing of when he does this, and you'll just know when to do it.
Reap your soul, shall reap your soul.
Also, for some reason he dives over to you, and then if he stands next to you for too long, then he'll dive away.
Nowhere near.
Now unfortunately when he dives away here, it's going to mess up our positioning at the north of the room. So if he summons more ghost walls, you're going to have to hopefully walk through them or avoid them.
Rise, my minions. This is true power.
Once he gets to 200,000 health, he's going to teleport to the balcony at the north of the room. Any minions he has summoned will die, and he'll be immune for a little bit when he does the teleport. While he's in this phase, all of his attacks will have Death Spark, so you'll probably want to turn on Soul Split, though technically you can use Deflect Necromancy with Anticipation and Freedom, but I would just turn on Soul Split. Every few seconds he's going to spawn a little shadow under you, and after a little bit it will detonate, hitting the squares adjacent to it. So for this phase you'll need to be moving around. I have seen some people just walk back and forth, but I usually walk in like a rectangle pattern. If you're not used to using attacks while you're moving, you'll need to spam click and then use a keybind to use like basic necromancy attack and soul sap, and preferably your other abilities as well. Make sure you apply bloat here, and if vulnerability is worn off, use that as well. If you have a power burst of vitality potion, you can activate reflect and just stand still for a little bit in this phase, and that will reflect quite a bit of damage to Rasial. But if you don't have power burst of vitality, don't worry about it.
No more games.
If you do have Death Skulls up during this phase, be careful not to walk too far away from him, because if you do, it can bounce to one of the obelisks and then it won't bounce back to you and you'll kind of waste it. If you're having trouble staying alive during this phase, remember you can use Resonance, Reflect, and Debilitate to take less damage. Not all at the same time, of course.